Hello and welcome to the Indian Express editorial discussion. So today is 18th February 2026. Before this discussion, we have already uploaded our discussion on today's The Hindu newspaper. So you can just see that. Also, so let us start. So world face, you have that Iran briefly closes Strait of Hormuz as US Tehran nuclear talks unfold. Okay, so yeah, so Strait of Hormuz is a very important. Why? Let us see. Uh, First announced closure of a state carrying 20% world's oil amid US threats. Okay, so how much it is carrying 20% of world's oil. Okay, so it is one of the major choke points. So here is the Strait of Hormuz. So you see, this is the choke point. It is very a narrow strip connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. Okay, so Persian Gulf to Arabian Sea through Gulf of Oman. Okay, so you have Persian Gulf, yeah, this side you have Arabian Sea, and here you have Oman. Okay, so the countries which are there situated in the state of Hormuz that you need to look at. So you have Iran, then in the south you have Saudi Arabia, then you have UAE, then you have Oman. Okay, please remember the important countries of the state of Hormuz. So you have first Iran, then here you have Oman, then UAE, then Saudi Arabia. Okay, so on the top of the north side you have Iran. In the south you have Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Oman. Okay, so Iraq is also there. So you see here is Iraq. I think its land is not, maybe, no, I think some parts of, yeah, Iraq is also touching the Persian Gulf. Okay, so that is the thing. Now let us see. So Iran and the United States reached an understanding on the main guiding principles in a second round of indirect talks over nuclear dispute on Tuesday. But it does not mean a deal is imminent. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said different ideas have been presented. These ideas have been seriously discussed. Ultimately, we have been able to reach a general agreement on some guiding principles. From now on, we will move based on those principles and enter the text of a potential agreement. Araghchi told Iranian media after the talks concluded in Geneva. After the exchange of documents, the two sides will decide on a date for a third round of negotiations, he said. The US has sent a battle force to the Middle East to press Tehran to make concessions in the decades long nuclear dispute, and President Donald Trump has said regime change in Tehran may be the best thing that can happen. Okay, regime change. So Trump is trying. Yes, so the dream of President Trump is to see the regime change in the Tehran. Okay. Iranian state media reported earlier that Iran would temporarily shut part of the Strait of Hormuz, a vital global oil supply route, as it held talks over its nuclear program, while Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned on Tuesday that any US attempts to depose his government would fail. It was the first time Iran has announced the closure of the key international waterway through which 20% of world's oil passes since the US began threatening Iran and rushing military assets to the region. Speaking at the disarmament conference in Geneva after the talks, Arakchi said that new window of opportunity had opened and that he hoped talks would lead to a sustainable solution that ensured the full recognition of Iran's legitimate rights. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kissinger took part in Geneva talks, which were being mediated by Oman. A source briefed on matter told Reuters. The White House did not respond to email questions about the meeting. Earlier, Trump said he himself would be involved. Earlier, Trump said he himself would be involved indirectly in Geneva talks, and that he believed Iran wanted to make a deal. I don't think they want. I don't think they want the consequences of not making a deal. Trump said. Just after the talks started, Iranian media cited 86-year-old Khamenei as saying Washington could not force out his government. The republic has been ruled by clerics since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The US president says their army is the world's strongest, but the strongest army in the world can sometimes be slapped so hard it cannot get up. He said in comments published by Iranian media. Uh, the US has sought to expand the scope of talks to non-nuclear issues such as Iran's missile stockpile. Tehran says it is willing only to discuss curbs on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief and will not give a uranium enrichment. Okay, so that is the thing. So important thing we have to remember that state of Hormuz where it is located. Okay, and what are the countries which are surrounded by state of Hormuz, and why state of Hormuz is important? Because around 20% of world's oil passes through this route. Okay, this state of Hormuz connects Persian Gulf to Arabian Sea via Gulf of Oman. Okay, so countries which are located or surrounded by Strait of Hormuz. So in the north you have Iran, then you have Iraq, then in south you have Saudi Arabia, you have UAE, then you have Oman. Okay, you have Saudi Arabia, you have UAE, you have Oman, you have Iraq, you have Iran. Okay, so Strait of Hormuz, it is basically so Iran has closed the state part of Strait of Hormuz. It is being claimed by the Iranian media. That is why it is become important. Probably a good question uh, that will appear this time in UPSC prelims examination. And if you see the previous in last year BPSC prelims paper, that was the 71st prelims, then they have already asked that Strait of Hormuz connects which of the following. So the answer was the Persian Gulf to Arabian Sea. Okay, so that is the thing. So basic thing you have to be very clear. Okay, so strikes on three more alleged drug boards kill 11, says US military. Not important much. Now here see historic Sanajaro theater in Naples destroyed in blaze. Spain approves $68 billion in aid for storm-hit regions. Government opens EU privacy probe into Musk Grok. Okay, not important. Epstein's file fallout. Hayat board chairman Pritzker resigns, expresses regret over links. Oh my god. Oh, hey, sahab. I mean, so many people have been caught. Unlike in other countries, we don't see any people in India who are resigning from the from post. Thomas Pritzker, a billionaire, here hired to Hyatt Hotels fortune, stepped down from his role Monday as executive chairman of the Hyatt Hotels Corporation, becoming the latest person filled by an association with the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. Pritzker 75 said in a letter to the Hyatt board that he was retiring effective immediately, adding good stewardship also means productive Hyatt, particularly in the context of my association with Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell, which I deeply regret. Now, Ukraine and Russia begin Geneva talks as Trump piles pressure on Kiev. Okay, I think now we have to move to other pages. Okay, so here is the explain section. So explain section is on the artificial intelligence. So the architects of artificial intelligence and the ties that bind them. So this is the how the evolution of of this AI, advanced AI has happened. So the wave of AI leaders. Okay, so OpenAI, Sam Altman. So Anthropic, Dario Amodei, Daniel Amodei, co-founder of OpenAI, Suts Kevar, Mia Murati quit as OpenAI CTO last year. Arvind Srinivas was a research scientist at OpenAI for a year until 2022. Perplexity, also he is associated with Perplexity now. Thinking Machine Lab. So you see those people who were associated in the development of the ChatGPT has now left the team and they have created their own AI. Okay, so Perplexity. So this is one of the very famous. It was developed by Arvind Srinivas, who was the research scientist at OpenAI. Okay, then DeepMind, 200 plus former employees have established their own startups. And Mustafa Suleyman, CEO of Microsoft AI, was co-founder of DeepMind. Okay, so hundreds of alumni from these two organizations have gone on to found their own startups. Despite damage, black boxes hold key to Pawar Air crash probe. Okay, India's challenges as Myanmar gets new government under shadow of all conflicts. Okay, Myanmar. Okay, we'll see the data law. SC to examine privacy, public interest, and press freedom. That's a good thing. Okay, so we have lots of information here that we can do. So first, let us look at this one legal. Okay, so what is the news? Let me make it a little bit bigger. I think 125. Yes, now it is good. So, data law, Supreme Court to examine privacy, public interest, and free press freedom. So, here is the news. So, three separate PIL petitions have been filed in the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of the Digital Personal Data Protection DPDP Act 2023. They argue that while the Act and the rules notified under it was enacted to safeguard digital privacy of individual, it paradoxically undermines the fundamental rights to information (RTI), handicaps investigative journalism, and expands state surveillance power. The petitions have been filed by the civil society network National Campaign for People's Right to Information, Transparency Advocate Venk, Venkateswar Nayak, and the Reporters Collective Trust (TRC), a group of investigative journalists. The Supreme Court on Monday admitted the pleas, issuing notice to center and listed them for hearing by a constitution bench of five judges in March. However, it declined to place an interim stay on the act. Now, privacy versus transparency. So let us see privacy versus transparency. The three petitioners point out how Section 44.3 of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act amends Section 81J of the RTI Act 2005, which governs the disclosure of personal information held by public authorities. Earlier, public officials could deny personal information requested under RTI Act only if it had no relationship to any public activity or interest or it caused an unwarranted invasion of individual privacy. There was also a public interest exception. The public information officer PIO could disclose even personal information if they were satisfied that the larger public interest justifies the closure. The new section exempts that uh, NCPRI's petition stated that this amendment extinguishes a PIO's statutory power to weigh public interest against privacy. TRC says investigations into corruption often rely on asset disclosures, tender documents, and file notations which inevitably contain personal data. By removing the public interest override, the petitioners argue that public authorities can withhold information that is seemed personal, withhold information that is seemed personal, even if it has a significant connection to the public activity. NCPRI contends that this converts a carefully calibrated privacy exemption into an absolute law, shielding corrupt officials. Nike's petition called this a death nail for participatory democracy and reunions to the ideas of open governance. NCPRI says the RTI Act amendment is manifestly arbitrary as it creates a class of information that is opaque regardless of public interest involved. Impact on journalism. On press freedom, TRC's petition highlights how, under the DPDP Act, journalists collecting data on individual may be classified as data fiduciaries. This imposes severe obligations such as giving notice to and obtaining consent from the very individuals being investigated. TRC argues that this is infeasible and counterproductive for investigative journalism. If the individual does not give consent, Section 12 mandates that their data be erased by data fiduciary, which would make a post facto validation of a news report or article impossible. The petition also warns of a chilling effect due to the unaffordable penalties rising up to rupees 250 crores prescribed under the Act. State power and independence. Both Nayak and TRC challenge Section 36 of the Act, which empowers the union government to call for information from any data fiduciary. TRC says this facilitates unreasonable digital searches without the procedure safeguards, and that it is vague, overboard, and arbitrary. It adds that without an exception for journalistic purposes, media organizations could be forced to hand over data revealing anonymous sources, deterring potential formats. Nayak contents there is a no appeal or review available against the central government orders. This lends the provision amenable to arbitrary and excessive abuse with the central government monopoly over private data. Nike and TRC also allege that the Data Protection Board of India, tasked with enforcing the Act and imposing penalties, lacks independence. Under the newly notified rules, the selection committee for appointing the board chairperson and members consists entirely of government secretaries and government nominated experts. Nike's petition argues that complete executive dominance in appointments violate the doctrine of separation of powers in light of the board performing quasi-judicial functions. Okay, so these are the grounds on which they are going to fight in the Supreme Court against the DPDP. So a good development will unfold. Uh, oh, this is strategic news. So I don't find useful thing now. The land Paris is out across studies and divides. Okay, that way. So see Raja Bhosar, you can just see this. So thank you very much. I will have to stop here.